You'd be amazed at how many people coast through life without setting any real goals for themselves. And if they were able to put voice to something, they usually don't have the specifics down. They haven't really thought it out or visualized it in detail. They aren't living it as if it's already been accomplished from that assumptive state. That's the secret ingredient right there. And the hardest thing for most people to do. How can I live in it if I've never been there before? This is what everybody wails at me. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But what's even more important and priority before all of that is understanding what kind of a goal to set. Hi, everybody. I'm Diane Armitage, and welcome back to the Catalyst Code, where we crack the internal code that creates the external result. I'm your host, and after 27 years as Bob Proctor's writing partner and protege, I've been helping people all over the world step into their greatness and create better in their world. Everybody needs better. Each week, Catalyst Code teaches you how to activate your momentum, rewire your mind, and create results that stick. You are the catalyst. This is the code. So let's go. Now, in my last episode, I was talking about legendary leaders and mavericks, the people who don't just think positive attitude, but actually live from this assumptive state that opportunities are everywhere, that life is always going their way, and that the screw it, let's do it attitude is usually the best business plan of attack. As a result, they are big goal achievers. Of course, right? Now, all kinds of people talk about writing, speaking, doing, goal achieving. You've heard it all before, but I'm interested in something else here, not just goal achieving, actually, but showing you how to permanently raise yourself to the place in life where you deserve to be. So I would say more than goal achieving, I would call that growth achieving. So many people think that settling is the thing to do, and that setting goals is all about, getting more stuff, a promotion, a new car, a bigger house, a bank full of gold bricks, the love of your life. This can all be achieved, but the real reason we have goals is to stretch and grow into a new place of living and being. When you set big goals for yourself and then take action as best as you know how, which is all that can be expected, this causes you to draw something out of yourself that you didn't know was there before. And I'm going to say that again because there's something important here I'm going to touch on again. When you set big goals for yourself and begin following inspired action, maybe even like I explained about Richard Branson in my last Catalyst episode, you're drawing something out of yourself that you didn't even know was there. You begin to understand how much power you have in the choices for the rest of your life, for the course of your life. See, most people, they grow up thinking a goal is, for soccer or football, touchdown, goal. I'm betting that if you were to walk down the street and ask any generic passerby, they wouldn't be able to tell you their goal. You'd be amazed at how many people coast through life without setting any real goals for themselves. And if they were able to put voice to something, they usually don't have the specifics down. They haven't really thought it out or visualized it in detail. They aren't living it as if it's already been accomplished from that assumptive state. That's the secret ingredient right there. And the hardest thing for most people to do. How can I live in it if I've never been there before? This is what everybody wails at me. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But what's even more important and priority before all of that is understanding what kind of a goal to set. Now, Bob Proctor used to talk about this all the time. He would call it the A, B, or C goal. And I'm not talking a seagull like seagulls, like the winged screeching kind who torment me out there on the roof every day and steal fried chicken legs and tortilla chips from all the unsuspecting kids down on my beach down there. And then fly with those bags and those creepy fried legs up here to gnaw on them outside my window. My condo roof is like a truck stop between two really popular beaches. And it's uncanny the things I find on my roof. They seriously eat anything. Okay, but anyway, I digress. I'm not talking about seagulls, flap, flap. When I'm talking about goals, we're talking about A type goals, B type goals, and C type goals. So what's the difference? A type goals in my book stand for already done. An A goal is so minimal. It's something that you can easily reach because you've already know how to do it. You've already done it before. I mean, there are cells of recognition already in your mind. You want to ask for a raise this year. You want to buy a new car. Maybe you want to buy a slightly larger house that you can expand into with your family. A goals may seem like goals only because you've tacked the name onto it as a goal, but seriously, they just kind of keep you moving sideways. You're not required to grow or stretch beyond an inch or two. They're really more like a shopping list or a to-do list. I mean, take, for example, say you want to buy a house. You purchased a house a while back, but now you want a slightly larger house. Okay. So it might require a slightly larger down payment. No big deal, but you already know how to buy a house. Now, if you're living in a starter home in suburbia, USA, and you decide you want to own and acquire a castle in Ireland, now that might be more of a C goal. But little goals that require little stretch are really no goals at all. They're simply already done tasks on your to-do list. A real goal is about doing something you've never done before. Now, a lot of people think they're landed in this category by setting a B goal. So let's explain what that might be about. Now, B-type goals, I often refer to B-type goals as boring or blah goals because they're usually not hugely inspired goals. Blah goals are those kind that you seem like maybe you're stretching, but you think you can chart your way there. You can chart your path to achievement. Basically, you're thinking, if I put this resource here, and if I pull this resource over here, and if I connect the dots this way, I maybe can move money from here to there, and I can accomplish this, right? So as an example, when speakers and trainers like Mark Victor Hansen wanted my help writing a book or creating a new course or a new program, I would take their initial ideas. Sometimes they arrived in different ways. Mark Victor's initial ideas would arrive sometimes on a cocktail napkin from an airline flight where he had scribbled 3 or 4 inspired points on his always at the ready purple ink pen. And sometimes these initial ideas on the cocktail napkin would become the next big book. Sometimes these initial ideas would simply be delivered on the phone by Bob after exiting a flight with Mark Victor Hansen. I mean, these guys, they would just sit on the plane next to each other and come up with one idea after another. So Bob would call me and he'd say, "Di, we've got this great idea. This is the end result we want. Now you go, go, write the sales letter and like get all the marketing in place and we're done." I tell you, no matter what they threw at me, it was fun and hair on fire, kind of challenging. But I figured out fairly quickly that it took just a few in-person interviews with these master creators to come up with, a table of contents and then start filling in polished versions of what I asked in the interviews. That created the book. That created the program. So the first time this happened to me, the first time I was asked to do a book, it might have seemed like a C goal then, but I mean, I already knew how to write. I've been doing it for decades already. So really, even the first request for the first book was a B goal. And then every book and program after that just followed the same template that I had come up with. So no matter how big the author or speaker or their idea for the next big event or thing, I knew I had this resource and I could connect that dot to this dot and access this resource over here and make it all happen. See what I mean? Now, I'm not saying it was ever boring working with these legendary leaders, not for a minute, not by a long shot. But finishing a new book or program for them, that was just a B goal, really barely above the A goal. I mean, I already knew I could create it, finish it, because I already had the system. Now, many of my clients will set what they call B type goals, and then eventually they just let them kind of fall to the wayside, far from being achieved. Now, this is where you look back at the resolutions and the goals that you make on your birthday or on New Year's Day, all those goals you made last year and the year before and the year before, and you're still carrying forward those one or two items that you didn't accomplish the year before. Why? Because you just don't care enough about really achieving them. I remember Bob telling me that the first time, and I was like, that felt like a little bit of a slap. But he told me, Diane, if you really wanted it, you'd have it. If you really wanted it, you'd already have it. They sound nice. They may even look nice on paper. You may think you really want it, but something in your energetic vibration just doesn't feel the excitement in it. Now, C-type goals stand for fantasy. That's where the rubber hits the road. That's where a disgruntled Richard Branson, like I talked about in my last episode, who has a recording studio, it's doing very well, a record company doing very well, maybe even record stores by this time, all doing very well. He knows that world really well now, but he walks off of a plane, disgruntled, and not knowing a damn thing about starting an airline, begins to start a new airline. I mean, that's Bob Proctor writing on a little index card that his teachings will be in every single country on the planet. Now, you're talking about 195 countries on the planet. He wrote that card back in the early 1970s when we didn't have the global connection that we have now. I mean, I remember my dear friend Mark Cameron, who is most decidedly Bob Proctor's longest standing client, telling me about how he went with his dad to a Bob Proctor seminar when he was 17. A week later, he dropped out of high school. He had already earned all of his graduating credits, right? And he realized he was just burning time there. He had humanity to save, right? So this was way back in the early 1970s. And he told me that for a couple of years, he couldn't find Bob Proctor. We didn't have internet. We didn't have email. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have Facebook events or websites or even voicemail. I mean, we thought fax machines were a big deal back then. I mean, it took real sleuthing work on Mark's part to find Bob's office and then the phone number for the office to see if Bob was still teaching anywhere. So writing that you're going to be in 195 countries across the planet in the 1970s, that is a tall order. That looks impossible now, let alone in the 1970s. But Bob actually achieved that goal in 2021. That was a C-type goal. Now, long before you decide on a C-type goal, you have to allow one thing into your life, into your mind, into your presence, into your energy. You have to give yourself permission to fantasize. Now, let me assure you, most of the people on the planet put fantasizing away when they were about 8 years old. Such a disgrace. We're born into this world with an inner source of power that is only for expansion and expression of your greater self. Now, initially, we're encouraged to use our imaginations and fantasize. We're given coloring books with a whole lot of crayons. We're given Lego blocks and imaginative Disney movies that encourage us to wish upon a star. And then cold, hard reality comes knocking. In the majority of cases, as we start getting older, we're encouraged to tamp down that creative imagination. Start paying attention. Trade it in instead for a get real mentality. Because getting real means, we need a college education and a degree and a secure job and a pension and a marriage and 2.5 kids and unbeknownst to us, we begin living a life that other people want us to live, that other people are living and expect us to follow suit on. We begin living down to their expectations. What happened to our expectation? our anticipation, our assumptions of life going our way in a big way. Well, they quietly got swept under the bed with all those coloring books and Disney movies. It reminds me of that great If movie. Maybe it was called IF, the great If movie with Ryan Reynolds that came out in 2024. Now, it was considered a box office flop, which just goes to show that most reasoning adults thought that the movie's premise about adults reconnecting with their childhood imaginary friends was just a dumb concept for a movie. You ask most adults if they've had an imaginary friend when they were 3 or 5 or 7, and they nod affirmatively. But that kind of ridiculousness, well, they all outgrew it. You never outgrow your imagination, but you can most definitely lock it away in a Rapunzel castle in the sky. People who make and achieve sea goals, they've never stopped imagining. They've never stopped coloring outside the lines. They've never stopped asking, what if? What if? What if? They've always approached their day with an inquiring mind that asks, I wonder. Now, if you think you're not that kind of person, I'm here to tell you that you're dead wrong. You are spirit first and foremost, having a human experience in that body of yours. It is not the other way around. You just need to reach under that bed, pull that creativity out, maybe dust off a few of those dust bunnies, and let your imaginative mind soar again. That's what a C-type goal is all about. That is what a C-type goal is all about. You see an entirely different future. And the way you do this is by asking yourself, what do I really want? What would I love? What would I love doing? This is where your spirit, your passion, and your purpose resides. When that big thought burbles up, you'll know it's the right thought because it causes this ripple of excitement in you, or maybe a ripple of fear too. It all kind of depends on how you define that ripple, right? Because that reasoning mind of yours wants to get involved immediately to shoot it down. You don't even know how. You don't have the funds for that. You don't have the education for that. You don't have a single resource to help you. Why are you even thinking about something that you don't even know anything about? Now, see, this is where you balance precariously on the edge, on the great unknown. The great unknown. This is where most people step down from the edge. But this is where your spirit wants to go. This is where your imagination knows it can take you. This is where you feel drawn, you feel pulled to go there. This is where you feel yourself come alive. This is where you start getting all these ideas all at once. Your imagination is like, bing, it's on fire. So many people feel that ripple of fear, or the ripple from their terribly plodding and boring, reasonable mind, and they immediately step back or turn and run from it. That's the wrong direction to be going, my friend. And it's not going to work anyway, because now that you've let it come to the surface, it's not going to leave you alone. It will haunt you with its desire to bloom. Now, I can help you with this acceptance of the C goal so that you're actually letting it sift into your being, letting it light up all the corners of you. And I'll get to that in my next podcast episode. I call it your built-in tower of power. It's a big concept, but it makes so much sense. And it's already embedded within you. It makes so much sense in creating a crazy, easy path to consciously adopting the C goal instead of turning tail and running from it. You want to be a legendary leader who regularly creates and achieves goals? Do you want to just be a person who takes leadership of your life? Maybe you're not ready to call yourself legendary, but you would like to choose better decisions and better actions for your life. Don't waste your time with the A's and the B's. The C type goal is the sweet spot where you deserve to live. Now we have something to work with. You've essentially and quite effectively raised your unconscious desire to conscious awareness. There is a new landing place for you, not for anyone else, just for you, where the land of your dreams is actually something that you come to stand upon. In the closing scene of Pretty Woman, when the credits start to roll, some random guy walking in the crosswalk yells, "What's your dream? Always time to dream, so keep on dreaming." What is your dream, my friend? It's time to let that imagination out of the Rapunzel castle. Sit down. Let your imagination roll. What would you love? What would you love to do? What would feel like making a difference? What would create a wave instead of just a ripple? Write it down on paper before you let that reasoning mind of yours stop you or erase it or try to erase it from your mind. Your imagination can take you there. It can help you in any way, shape, or form with every resource you need. But you've got to let it out of the castle first. That's it for today's Catalyst Code. I would love to have you go to my YouTube channel, Diane Armitage, or you can find it under Catalyst Code. And please subscribe there. You'll get updates there right away. And I would love to have you share this news with your friends, people who deserve to live life on their terms. That's what this is all about. You make it a great week ahead.